Sorry for the pause. Welcome to the July 22nd outreach meeting. Um, let's just jump right into introductions so I can do some quick post the YouTube link. But I'll introduce myself first. I'm Tim Erickson. I'm in Deerwood, Minnesota. And yeah, it's been a very busy time. I think I fixed that. I think you all just heard that.
I heard it.
Dang. I waited all that time to mute that, and then it still came on. Anyways, this is our first outreach meeting after Backdrop Live, so I expect that this will be a good chance to talk about that. Robert, do you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Robert Lang from Altadena, California, bug folder on the internet. I'll pass it to Joseph.
Hi, I'm Joseph. I'm from Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm a back-end developer. Hoping to help out wherever I can. Luke.
Thanks, Joseph. I am Luke McCormick. Happy to be back in San Ramon, California, after a few weeks in Florida. Have some bandwidth and then interested in actually diving in and doing some outreachy type things. Subhasri?
My name is Sarvasri, and I'm fairly a newbie. I'm working on a guide, Ultimate Beginner's Guide to Backdrop. It's 35 pages long now, and got 3 more sections to do. And I noticed people were looking at how to set up a backdrop system on Julep. They were talking about it, and I think this will help a lot of people. So that's all of us, I think. Tim,
You're muted.
Yeah, I know. I was saying that, but you couldn't hear me because I was muted. Okay, we all introduced ourselves. So again, it's been a busy time. I have not got anything particularly on the outreach agenda today. So if people have things they want on the agenda today, I think the natural thing is for us to talk about Backdrop Live and what's coming next. We should look and see. I think we have. Well, anyways, so is there anything else that people specifically want to talk about today besides Backdrop Live?
Did you get a chance to read the 35-page guide that I put out? Could talk a little bit about that.
I have not, but let's talk about that for a minute on today's agenda. I was just looking to see if we had dates penciled in for the next Backdrop Live yet, and I don't think we have, which is fine. So let's, anything else that, Luke, you said you might be interested in doing some outreachy stuff or have some time right now. Is there anything in particular that you were thinking about that you wanted to work on?
Yes and no. I've got sort of specific ideas, but they're so all over the map that I'm worried it'll come out just like brain soup if I start spewing things. So let me kick back a little bit, and I'll just be prepared to jump in. I want to know about Subhasri's guide, because I missed that. I haven't been following the Julep conversation that closely. Have you released first version?
I just have a draft version right now, and I have 3 more sections to do. I'm going to do something on views, something on creating a sub-theme, and then another section I don't know how to do yet is once you've developed an offline system, how you put it up on the net, how you put it live on the net. So I'm not sure how that's done.
Good questions. I think that Sarvashri has shared the link to his draft with some people, and I'm guessing that he'd be happy to share his current draft with you because he did it at Backdrop Live. He kind of shared it with some folks that were interested.
Yeah.
Is that true,
I'm interested.
Sarvashri?
If you can share it with me, I'd be happy to read it
Okay, let me
and
see if I
give
have
feedback and stuff.
your email.
You could give it, post the link to him in Zulip.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay.
I have your email.
Okay. So other than you're looking for some feedback, is there anything else you wanted to share about your guidebook yet, Sarvashri?
It's just a process of writing and trying to make it clear enough for new people to understand. I was just in the Zulip chat, and somebody was talking about how difficult it was to get a Linux system going for development, and he'd gone through several iterations of that and having a hard time. And the map system that I'm using was very simple. You just put a fresh install of Backdrop in your htdocs folder and unzip it every time you want to create a new website, give it a name, and then you're off and running, assuming you have a database there. Otherwise, you have to create
Right.
a database to link to, and it makes it pretty easy to spin up websites locally. I have 4 or 5 of them going now. And so
I'll just say, Sarvashri, that tools like MAMP are really easy when they work, but they don't always work. And that as somebody who's tried to help people set up these environments a lot, it's like it might be 9 times out of 10 it goes really smoothly, but then that one time it doesn't, and then it's just
that might be true of all the different ways of doing it. I'm not sure.
it is, yeah. Well, that's why we don't just have one method, is because all of them have their flaws, and none of them seem to work reliably all the time for somebody, when they're first starting.
Well, maybe I should put a note in the document that if you're having trouble with this, to go to Zulip or somewhere and or to the forum, Backdrop forum, and ask a question.
Yep. Okay, good. Well, let's talk about Backdrop Live. So anybody have any, before we talk about the next one, let's just the last one. There was some debriefing sort of during and after Backdrop Live. Does anybody want to, about 2 weeks, it's been 2 weeks ago now. 2 weeks later, have any reflections on how it went, or what we should do different next time?
Well, I thought it went really well. We just need to do more promotion ahead of time and get more people in. That's the only thing I see that we were lacking, really, because it goes pretty smooth, even if we don't have a whole agenda fully mapped out and everything perfect. It still works, and I think people enjoyed it. Okay.
Okay. So promoting it better, always a good idea.
I have. I'm sorry. I have a thing, but I want to wait for a good spot for it.
Okay. Well, I'll just comment that there has been chatter about the ongoing debate about to record or not to record everything. Has been happening in Slack. So some of the sort of anecdotal feedback we're getting is frustration with folks who weren't able to attend, that things weren't recorded. I have strong opinions about that. As people know, there is no, I don't think there's a perfect solution here in terms of recording. I like to see as much content as possible recorded. On the other hand, I don't think it's practical or that we should record everything. And I think that, Backdrop Live, personally, for me, is is an event that at least partially is structured for informal conversations, which I don't think benefit from that. However, so Peter has been a strong advocate for recording, and Peter and I are going to have a private chat soon to sort of talk this through and see if we can come up with at least something that we, come to terms on that. But I welcome more people to chime in on that discussion and give us feedback. So on whether or not we should record everything. One thing that I think came up in one of the forums is if Backdrop Live is an event that isn't designed to be recorded, do we need, maybe there's a place for an event like Backdrop Live that is more structured and is recorded. So on the other hand, we're having a hard time, I think, pulling off Backdrop Live right now. So
So
anybody want to go ahead?
yeah, I mean, this is something that can be experimented with. That, it's not an all or nothing thing, and so
Yeah.
seems like one of the things to do would be to sort of test the waters on the next Backdrop Live by saying we're going to have a small number of recorded sessions and leave it to the presenter to decide whether they're comfortable leading a recorded session, and then of course whether people are willing to attend a session that they know that they're going to be recorded. But let's try it out with a handful of topics, not all of them. And if people clamor for more, then that's great. And if no one shows up to the recorded sessions because they don't want to have their questions, recorded for posterity, then we'll know that too. But it seems like let's try it.
I'm not against it. Yeah. Did you have anything to add, Robert?
That was it.
Okay, I'm not against experimenting. I'm absolutely for it. But the idea that we do it, and if people show up, that means they're okay, to me isn't the test, because it isn't. I know people will show up for an event that's recorded. My question is whether they'll participate or not, and that's a harder thing to sort of gauge. And also, for the people who either don't show up or don't participate, you don't know why it is they didn't. So experimentation alone doesn't sort of answer that, just like having a recorded event and seeing whether people show up. That's some information.
That's
but
a little
not,
verbal shorthand. Of course, there's more to it than people, as you say, there's more to it than people showing up. And we can also certainly get data afterwards by asking attendees, what did you think of the recorded session? Did that make a difference whether you attended and so forth? And there's lots more that can be done if we say you just want to try it out, and we can test whether it worked.
So Robert's touching on sort of the elephant in the room thing there that I was waiting for a spot to bring in. If this is a good time, I'll go
Sure.
with it. It's funny because it's something that I've mentioned before, and it seems so easy, and it's only that it's been a possibility for so long, yet hasn't seemed to happen. That I think there must be some fundamental flaw in my vision. But I'll throw that again. I kind of have a vision that goes for all sorts of conferences. I used to think about it for in-person DrupalCons, for bad camps, for things like that, to try to capture somehow in the website for the event information that lives past the event. So in this case, the particular way this would work for something like Backdrop Live would be, in addition to or instead of or complementing recordings, have a place for like group notes, and it could be comments on a node, but just something so that past the event there would be a place where people who were wondering, so what happened in Backdrop Live, you could kind of go through the thing and and see notes. And I mean, the problem is that there's no secretary, there's nobody's job it is to capture the thing. So there's this, you know, you'd have to have this, you know, effective crowdsourced thing. You'd have to have somehow the group agrees on and gets together to capture it. But it feels like it could work. So I mean, that's the vision without actually knowing how, you know, how it would be realized. Any thoughts on that? On like, you know, written, like minutes basically, but like, is there a way to somehow capture minutes of the sessions in a recognized spot so that people would know to look for?
I attend this conference every fall called the Nonprofit Developer Summit that does a really good job of this. And what they essentially do is at the beginning of every session, they assign a designated note taker. And so before anything starts, that person has volunteered to write notes down. And then at the end of each session, they have the designated note taker email the notes to a conference organizer. And at the end of the conference, they have a giant, they use a wiki site, but it could be whatever we want. Then they email out a link to all the attendees and be like, here are all of the notes from all of the talks. And it works pretty well.
That's the vision. Should we do that? Should we do something, some form of that?
I think Tim had an idea of doing this for the last 2 Backdrop Lives. There's a field on every discussion for a shared collaborative notes document. I just think we might need to add into our process that like diligent step of being like, before we do anything, who's going to write down the notes? And someone in the room should volunteer for every conversation, or if they don't, like maybe the person who's organizing it could. For the conference that we do here, it's not like the person who's facilitating is not allowed to be the note taker. And they also assign a rapporteur, who is someone who like reports back to the group, like the larger group, what happened. We don't really have a like larger group setting, so I'm not sure that's necessarily important, but it is something that also really helps get 3 people from every session are going to be more actively involved because of their role in volunteering one way or another. And when you have groups that are small enough, like the ones that we have, that could be like 50% of the people are now like more actively involved, especially with an online event. It's really easy to get like distracted with all of your other windows open and stuff. And having a responsibility to pay attention, I think it really improved the quality of the conversations that we have.
Sounds good.
We could try it.
Yeah.
If people don't want to be videoed for these meetings, is there a way for them to attend incognito?
So that's another good question too. I noticed that a lot of other online conferences specifically hide attendees from one another. And it really harms the community aspect of things, but I think it solves this problem of allowing you to show up under like a pseudonym with no face and no voice and just sit there and listen like a fly on the wall. So I don't know, I have like mixed feelings. Like it's both, it solves the problem we need, but it also like decreases the, I don't know, the friendliness, especially if you're like a presenter, if you like can't see any of the faces, it's a little bit like talking to the void. And if we're supposed to be having conversations and not presenting, like it's really hard to talk to each other if you can't see each other. But I don't know if Zoom has some kind of a webinar feature that might have that option. I think it's definitely worth investigating what other alternatives we might have, even if it's not Zoom.
Do we know why people want to be anonymous?
I can give you 3 examples from people that I've talked to. One of them is that their job doesn't want them to be involved in Backdrop. And so they can't be seen being involved in Backdrop, even though they might want to be involved in Backdrop. Another one is that they are worried about their employer finding out that they are not an expert in the subject matter and them either getting a decrease in pay or losing their job. And another one is a personal safety issue where they are really concerned about somebody who's a threat to them in real life, knowing where they are in real life, and attending an event virtually might accidentally reveal something about their physical location that is personally threatening to them. So it's like a safety problem. And this is not like people specifically from the Backdrop community, just want to make that clear. These are people who I've talked to from other events who have real concerns about attending specific things. For Backdrop, there are people being like, not, you know, my job doesn't want me to be involved in Backdrop. It's very specific to Backdrop, but for people who are concerned about losing their jobs, like they don't want to have a recording of them asking a stupid question because that's something that a boss could hold against them in the future. It's something that I think is also like less of an issue depending on the type of content we're producing. Like I feel like if what we did was more like a traditional conference where you had a presenter who talked for an hour and then you had like 5 people at the end to ask questions, you've only got, you know, those 5 people that end up asking questions that are at risk. But when you have an entire hour devoted to people having a conversation, now all of those people in the conversation have an hour of online of material of them potentially saying something intentionally or unintentionally that might get them in trouble later. And that might not necessarily be not being a subject expert, but sometimes you say things by accident that just come out entirely wrong. And having all of that recorded and online, especially in like the world we're in today, where it'll be there forever, can be really damaging to some, and some people are worried about it. So I think it also depends on like where you are in your life, whether this affects you personally. Like for me, I work for myself. Like I say stupid things all the time online, like I'm comfortable with that. But I think there are a lot of people, particularly in different parts of the world, who don't have that kind of freedom. Like they are really concerned about, you know, their job being their source of income, and without it, they'd really be in a lot of trouble. And if they're already like, you know, not the best one there at something and worried about, I don't know, having some excuse for them to get in trouble, it's a much bigger problem.
So we need
Sure.
to
I mean, think about it.
describe-
If you work for a Drupal company that primarily makes their money off of Drupal, and you're in a Backdrop session and you want to say something critical of Backdrop or Drupal, you know, are you going to feel comfortable if this is being recorded and you don't know whose hands it's going to end up in? If it's just a private discussion, you're much freer to talk. I think too much weight is put on this idea of like, why do people want to stay anonymous? To me, it isn't about that so much. It's about, I go into Backdrop Live is one, there's DrupalCon on a whole, like DrupalCon sessions are not interactive, right? You go there to sit and watch presentations and to absorb information. I don't like that kind of event, right? So DrupalCon can record all of their sessions very easily because it's structured to be the delivery of information. I go to DrupalCon and I go to BOFs, and at DrupalCon, BOFs are not recorded. BOFs are designed to be birds of a feather for those who aren't interested. They're designed to be interactive, and they're designed to be casual conversations between people where you can just sort of speak freely, ask information, share information, and not worry about like if you're perceived as an expert, not worry, you know. And I went into Backdrop Live as wanting to create an event like that, right? Not wanting to create a copy of DrupalCon, but wanting to create an event that focuses on interactivity. So it isn't, you know, I doubt that the people in the room is going to change if we suddenly start recording it. But what I think is going to change is who's willing to say what, whether people are willing to turn on their cameras. There were people at Backdrop Live that never said a thing and never showed their face. And yet I saw them in 4 or 5 or 6 different sessions. And my goal is to try and get them to feel comfortable. You know, I don't care whether they show their face, but I'd like them to ask questions. And I just can't envision a scenario where saying, oh, if we record this, we're going to increase the likelihood that they will feel free to ask questions. I mean, even when it's not recorded, they're still reluctant to do that. And so for me, that's a lot of what it's about. Jen, I'm going to have a discussion next week with Peter and talk to him a little bit more about his concerns, just a private meeting. So there is some progress being made on this, because I've been getting frustrated because it's like just this sort of issue that keeps going on in the background, and I don't know how we make a decision that makes everybody happy unless we have some conversations about it with the people who are frustrated, right?
So I'd like to add something too. I think you've really hit on the problem there is that people have very different expectations of what a backdrop event should provide. And I think Tim, you and I are sort of on the same page about like, these are BOFs, these are not presentations. But I think that there are people who expect an event to be full of presentations. And if there aren't presentations, they expect the same format of material, like written notes, a video. And honestly, I think we need more of that for Backdrop. Like we need more videos of how to do stuff on Backdrop, and we need more notes and blog posts and whatever we can get. And I feel that desire. I feel, that there might be a session you want to attend and it's not the right time of day for you. I can feel that there's a need for that, but I don't necessarily think the Backdrop Live is the thing that's going to solve that problem. And one of the things I mentioned when Peter brought this up in the issue Q2 about it being the wrong kind of event, and I was like, well, maybe what we should have is another event that's more like what people are expecting of a DrupalCon that does offer this kind of presentation that is suitable for recording, that has only one presenter, that produces this content that we so desperately need. And we just need to brand it appropriately so that people know the Backdrop Live is a live setting where you're sitting there talking to people, and like Backdrop Con or whatever it is more of a traditional conference where you do have presenters and all of that other stuff. And I think that if we had something for everyone, it might not be so hard to make the one thing we have into something that makes everyone happy. And I don't know necessarily how we would do that, but I do think that is the underlying problem, is that we have needs for all the things and we only have a solution for one of the things. And it's hard to make everybody happy with that.
So people are coming because they want knowledge, right? They're trying to find something that they don't know, and they want to be educated. So it gets back to my idea of tutorials and education and so forth. But we thought that video tutorials that are longer tutorials actually are kind of troublemaking because things change and then the video is no good. So our solution that we thought about was then we could just make very short videos, like 1 minute, 2 minute videos that answer a particular question. Then if we had a way to search and discover those things, then people could go get that information and get that education that they want. Just answer a quick question, like the way people use YouTube all the time. They're curious about how to do something. They search on YouTube, they find a few people talking about it, and they get what they want. But in a technical arena, YouTube is not a good area as much as maybe something that we could create. Just a thought.
Sure. So I don't think we're going to solve this problem today. I think we have some ideas. We know there's frustration in the community about wanting more recorded materials, and I think we should try to figure that out. Maybe we need more different types of events. We need to keep talking about that. Maybe it's possible to do more of both in Backdrop Live. I don't know. I don't know if we can solve this today, but we should at least talk about I think after the first one, we scheduled 2 more, and we don't have dates for our next one. And I think the first thing we have to decide is, are we ready? Do we have the resources? Do we want to go ahead with another one 4 months from now? And, whatever, I think the biggest decision would be dates, although there's also been some talk like, is this in any way connected with a live event? I think we've talked about Bad Camp before, but Bad Camp's not happening this year, right? Jen?
Yes, right.
Okay, that's correct.
Well, if we just followed, we made sort of 2 decisions after the first Backdrop Live. One was to do them every 4 months. The first one was at full 48 hours, and at the time we thought, let's do just shorter 24-hour events. Twice a year, and then maybe once a year do a bigger event. Now, our shorter event sort of got bigger over the last two events. So we actually went for almost like, a day and a half. I don't know that we're, and I think I heard some comments at the last Backdrop Live that maybe that is a really good time. So I don't know if we need to go back to the 48-hour 2-day event, but there's still some logic that maybe once a year the event is different than the others. Maybe the once a year is the recorded event and the other two are the non-recorded, or something like that. I don't know, but my point being is that there's nothing that says that every Backdrop event or live has to be exactly the same. And so, what do people think about one? Are we ready to do another one? And what would it be 4 months from now? July, August, September, November?
So I definitely think we should do another one. I am open to what it would look like. I think November is hard because that's starting to get into holiday season. I would love to see it at the end of September instead. I think my test site had like September 14th through 16th on an event I was working on, but I don't know that we ever talked about that. I just saw it there and was like, oh, there's a date, but maybe I made it up. I like the idea of having one bigger event or one event that's recorded. And maybe like the way we can make, another thing that's been a little hard is that like when we ask people to submit session proposals, we don't get any, right? Like this last time we had a place on the website for people to give presentations and we got 0. And so that's a little hard in terms of creating an event if you want to have a schedule with online stuff. If you have 0 people showing up to be presenters and you have everybody wanting to give a BOF, that creates your event for you. I think it might be interesting if we did some outreach with different marketing to see what we got, and see like if we don't get anyone who wants to do a presentation, then we have another BOF event. And if we do get a bunch of people who want to do presentations, we can do presentations. I would expect, and this is the same thing I found for in-person Drupal events too, is that it really takes somebody who's dedicated to reaching out to everyone and being like, will you give a presentation on X in order to get a good schedule? And I think, Tim, you've done a lot of that work for us in the past, even for, just getting people to organize conversations. And that's going to be a lot harder if we're asking for people to prepare presentations ahead of time also.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I would say at least 2/3 of what's been on the schedule for the last 3 BOFs has been a result of direct asking, right? It has not come, less than 1/3 of our presentations have sort of come organically. So we really are having to reach out, ask people, and that's not a surprise to me. So I'm not complaining about that. I think it's normal. But I think there's an expectation from some people that, or some people don't see that, and they think that people are just coming to us with these ideas, and we really have to work for them. So. And again, just in case anybody's part of so every 4 months is what we had in mind. The other sort of time factor was to try to keep it sort of between releases. Our very first one was very close to a release, I think, and then we tried to sort of, put it in between releases. So I think that's where November would be between releases, but we could shift that forward a little. I think you just said September, Jen, but that would be, I mean, we got October in between, right? So maybe would October be?
Yeah, that makes more sense. I missed a month.
I kind of like October because that's where Bad Camp was, and so that kind of has that space available in a sense.
Okay. I mean, I sort of feel like early November might still be possible, but I don't care. October is also good. When was our first one? Was that, I think that was in like October, or was it even in September?
I think it was in September because it felt really close to the release.
Yeah, it was. And the
Yeah.
release would be September 15th, right?
Yeah, that's probably where I got that date from. Let's not do that again.
Yeah, so I would say sort of mid to late October would be good.
Even the first week of November works, but beyond the first week or
Right.
a little maybe first 10 days of November can work. Then people are going to be traveling and all sorts of things, holidays. Mindset will be totally different. But my experience is that up to the first week of November works pretty good.
So we have election day on November 2nd. So probably everyone should be home for that. But what about,
Yeah.
so we like what, Friday, Saturday? Or with Thursday,
That's
Friday,
only-
depending on where you are in the world?
Well, I think Friday, I think the earliest it starts for it's either Friday, Saturday, or Saturday, Sunday is
Okay.
what it's been recently, depending on where you are. But that isn't necessarily the right mix, right? We could shift it to be more Thursday, Friday, Friday, Saturday.
So there's also Halloween to work around, which is tough for parents that have kids if we do something too close to Halloween. So last week in October would be 29, 30, and that's the day, or 30, 29, 31, whatever that range is. And that could be hard for
Right.
parents. So I think my preference would be November 5th through 7th. Does anyone have any objections to that? We could also go before Halloween if people wanted, and that would be the 22nd, 23rd, and 24th for some people.
Right. Either works for me. I'm comfortable with the 1st of November, just to keep it closer to our current every 4 months. Actually, that would only be moving it up by like a week from what it might have normally been, I think.
When is the release date in that time frame?
September 15th. So, I mean, October is far enough. October 22nd and 23rd is far enough away from the release that I don't think that's a big issue.
I like mid-October.
Okay. So, well, so I'm comfortable with that. It is, yeah, it's 2 weeks, 2 weeks less planning time. But given that we don't usually start planning till 3 weeks beforehand, I don't know if that, we could, it'd be nice to change that, to get every time we want to get more, do more work earlier. So maybe this is the time we can do it.
The November 4th and 5th, or 3rd and 4th,
5th and 6th
5th and 6th.
for us, yeah.
Oh, that's Sunday and Monday?
Well, that's,
It's
No, no,
Friday,
I see.
Friday, Saturday.
Friday and Saturday. Yeah.
let's talk about the one other thing that really isn't working in Backdrop Live, and it's important to the dates, which is the global schedule, right? We're still not getting people at night, or like in the European time zones. Now, this was a particularly bad one, given midsummer. It's just a bad time to engage with a lot of our European colleagues. Some of our most active Europeans were on vacation. So October might be much better. But I'm bringing this up because the current schedule means that Backdrop Live starts in Europe like Friday night, and the bulk of it would be Saturday. The current schedule works nice for us in the US because we have a good chunk of it on Friday and a good chunk of it on Saturday. And if we're really trying to get more European participation, I don't know, maybe we need to rethink when we start it.
Do we have a coordinator for Europe?
We don't, and that is, we've talked about that as a goal to get better European participation. So I think having a European coordinator would be really the most important thing we could do.
So that would be another thing where you have to go ask somebody, do you want to be the coordinator? You know,
Probably.
volunteering. I mean, usually volunteering doesn't just work. You have to go out and ask most of the time
Right.
to get
Right.
things happening.
Well, maybe that's our first goal before we worry about, and if we get a European coordinator, then we can get them involved in like, do we need to shift the schedule? But without a European coordinator, maybe that the discussion of the schedule is mute, and we should just stick with what we got. We did have a number of Europeans participate. We did have 1 or 2 sessions in the European time zone. Actually, we have one of our European friends joining us, right? Steve is and I think actually Steve was offering to be a little more involved maybe in the next one. Steve, we're talking about you. Okay. We were just talking about the next Backdrop Live. We're looking at dates in late October. And we were talking a little bit about how to get better participation in Europe. Well, should we stick with the 22nd and 23rd then as our tentative dates for now? Or pick those as our working dates?
Oh, I
What
got it
is
right.
Oktoberfest in Europe?
Well, that primarily is in Germany, and that extends for like a 10-day period, and I don't think we have to worry about that.
Okay.
That's more of a tourist holiday than it is a.
Wild time.
If we get a European coordinator, we'll ask them to think about that.
It's been canceled this year.
Oh,
Oh, really?
Oh, has it?
no online Oktoberfest.
That wouldn't count.
Yeah, unfortunately.
That's more of a tourist holiday than it is a. Right.
Wild time.
Okay. If we get a European coordinator, we'll ask them to think about that.
It's been canceled this year.
Oh,
Oh,
Oh, really?
wait, what's happening?
online Oktoberfest.
Somebody has YouTube on.
It's me. I'm sure. Oh no, maybe it's somebody else. Somebody have YouTube on. More of a tourist holiday than it is a. Right.
We're in a time paradox now. We're in a
We get a European coordinator. Okay, I just closed my YouTube window, so that if it was me, it can't be anymore. If it was me, I don't know how it happened, because. Anyways,
Groundhog Day.
Okay, so which dates are we starting with?
well, I don't remember if it was Sarvashri or somebody suggested that maybe the week before Halloween, instead, or no, Luke, I think. Maybe Luke like that, and I don't really care. I guess either that first week in November or the week before Halloween. Either works for me. So.
I should be with you now. Sorry about that. I did have YouTube on, so I do apologize.
It's okay. I did it earlier in the meeting, so let's. Barring no objections, I'm going to put the 22nd, 23rd, and 24th down. Is our tentative date, or is our working dates? I don't want to call them tentative. They're our working dates, meaning that I think we still have time to change them if we get input, but
Yes.
that's what we plan on.
Tim, just so you know, I've added to the Google Calendar the Backdrop website and the events website, but I got the dates wrong. So that's why I was like, wait, I'm gonna go change them.
Okay. it's almost, we've only got 5 minutes before the next meeting. So that's I think our biggest, should we, for now, stick with the same sort of 30, like roughly 30, 36 hour time schedule that we had?
I like
And
that
I mean-
time schedule.
Okay.
I
Okay.
felt like the
A
right,
lot
like,
of time. I think it's a good time. I remember I didn't sleep much. 2 days of that would be a lot too much, I think.
So here's my only caveat is I'm happy with the schedule. I think it does work well for the US. My concern is with Europe, but again, to me, unless we have somebody actively promoting this in Europe, I'm not sure that we want to worry about that too much. And if we do get someone actively promoting it in Europe, then we can talk to them and see if they feel like there are some adjustments we need to make to make it easier. So, I think at this stage we're still open to the other thing we brought up was is there any format change for this? If this is like the first annual, if we want to hold on to that idea that once a year we do something a little different, this would be a good time to do it. What that different thing is, I think we still haven't decided. So people can continue to think about that. I think there's no doubt that this is a virtual event. Well, yeah. One other idea that has been floated in the past was doing something with. Now, well, I think that would be a different event, but doing something with another like CMS community or something, and having maybe a more general event, an open source CMS type event. But I think our decision in the past has been that if we did that, that would be a different event, not part of the Backdrop Live series. Anything else? Any Backdrop Live related that we can get done in a few minutes? Anything else? Just outreach related in general. Okay.
Certainly, I'll help as much as I can. Just point me in the right direction. You know, I don't mind helping at all.
Okay. Okay. I think maybe we need to use at this time in the planning cycle last time. I think my thought was that we would mention Backdrop Live during the outreach meetings, but I expected the planning to happen outside of the outreach meetings, and that might not have been realistic. I think we maybe need to use just plan on doing a lot of the planning for Backdrop Live in the outreach meetings and keep it on our agenda.
Seems reasonable.
And hopefully get started sooner. Okay, if nobody has anything else to talk about, I think it's time to wrap up for our next meeting. So I'm going to stop the